Hello, friends. The following episode contains subject matter that some listeners may find triggering around domestic violence and teenage substance abuse. If you or someone you love is in trouble or struggling, contact the kidshelpphone.ca or local helplines and services in your province or territory. Internationally, please contact your local helplines and crisis assistance centers. Welcome to Late in 88. I'm Bronwin Parks, here with my co-host Elinor Svoboda. This season, we're exploring our graduation year in high school in 1998 and the intense challenges of growing up queer and gender nonconforming in conservative Calgary, Alberta. Would it even be a discussion about the gay high school experience if we didn't invite over the iconic Canadian musician and author Tegan Quin? I think not. Just like any good song from the Twins, as soon as she got on the mic, Tegan was charming as hell and ready to roll with a lot to say. Let's go.
I actually prefer no introduction.
Amazing. Well, do you need an introduction? I mean, this is Canada.
Fair.
And North America, and
you're an icon.
You're a legend.
I've fallen below easy to pick out celebrity, and that feels pretty awesome. I'm anonymous again. One time I was renting a car in Palm Springs, and the girl who was, behind the counter doing the clickety-clackety, at one point she looked at me and said, "Do people ever tell you kind of look like Tegan and Sara?" And normally I say, "Oh, yeah," whatever. And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "I wonder what happened to them." And I was like, "Yeah, exactly." So it's just, I truly would rather be anonymous than have to deal with what might happen. Because a lot of people don't believe you when you tell them. They're like, "Okay." And you're like, "Oh God, now what are you going to say?" Because you don't think it's me. So anyway, who cares?
We're so interested to talk to you about the process you went through with mining your own high school experience, because that's what we're endeavoring to do with season 2 of Late in 88. And we're kind of semi in the middle of it and finding it very different from season 1 when we were doing middle childhood. And then, of course, the second part is that we have many crossovers, which I know is going to be fun to talk about. When you were writing your memoir, which I pulled out, remember that?
It came out in 2019.
Yeah, right before COVID, right?
Yeah.
Going back and making that decision to mine that time period. What kind of discoveries did you make about yourself? I know a lot of it's in the book, but just from a broad spectrum, how was that experience?
I bought a scanner and I flew to Calgary and I interviewed all of our high school friends and my dad and my stepdad, and just was so surprised and so excited because everybody had kept everything. I threw away everything. I didn't really have notes or, much in the written world, but there was a lot of content that I was able to collect. Also, I'd hung out with some friends who had kept our early demos, so all of our early songs that we'd written in high school. So going into the book writing process, I had so much content. It was really great because I had a lot of memories of stuff that had happened in high school, but it really filled in the blanks to be able to read how I talked, how I thought. Most importantly, the book, we decided would be centered on our sexuality and on our career. It wouldn't just be about being young and being adolescents. It was, going to be a focused attempt at trying to tell the story of our coming out and our becoming musicians at the same time. And my first serious girlfriend had kept our secret journals that we had written, which I had completely forgotten even existed. That was sort of what I went into writing with, was just so much stuff. And I feel like I was cheating, because when people read the book, they were like, "How did you remember all this? Your memory's incredible." And I'm like, no, my memory's not incredible. It took 40 people to help us write that book. It was just sheer luck that everyone had kept everything.
How did it feel when those pieces were given to you, that moment when you would read something that you'd totally forgotten about? Because I know I'm having moments of just whoa.
Yeah.
It's so clear to me what was going on for me or what I was feeling. But at the time, again, didn't remember it, totally blocked it out, whatever you want to call it. Did you have those experiences? A click?
Yeah, especially around 10th grade, because when we it was probably about halfway through the process where I got notes back on my 10th grade chapters, and the editors were like, just everything was more, we want more, can we have more? And I'm like, I don't remember anything from 10th grade because I was literally on acid the whole time. And that's when I flew back to Calgary and met with some friends who I hadn't seen in 20 years. And reading those notes and talking with them was definitely like, I mean, it was jarring, to have forgotten so much. And yeah, the notes in particular were just really funny, because they were so one-sided. I only just had what I had written, but it was as if I'd gone in a time machine back to that time and told like 15-year-old me, like, can you just write copious amounts of information about what you do all day? Like, there's no feeling. Like, it was all just like, today we went here with this person and this person and this person, and there was a huge fight and somebody had a bat. It's just like all this detail like that made me remember the experience. And of course I had emotion and feeling about it, but it really filled in the blanks. And there was so much about music. Like I had what wasn't really like clear on when we'd started writing songs. And it's like October 22nd, 1995. It's like, we found a guitar. Sara and I are writing songs right now. Like, it's literally like almost dumb how it's just laid out there. So it was like, oh my God, Sara, I have these notes. We started writing songs on this date. And, within 2 weeks, I'm writing to this girl being like, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be a rock star. Like I was like, what? And that was probably like one of the more jarring elements of writing the book, was realizing like how different Sara and I were. Sara was so tortured in high school, especially around sexuality, and had no idea what we were going to do with our career. And when we graduated, she was super resistant to being in the band and focusing on that. And it's always kind of been a point of contention that when we get asked about sexuality or about starting the band, I'm the exact opposite. Almost feels like I'm being oppositional for effect. And then it's like, there it was in black and white. I'd been holding a guitar for 2 weeks and was like, we're going to be famous. This is what Sara and I are going to do. This is our life. This is our career. This is it. And when I'm talking about my sexuality, it's like, again, dumb. I'm just like, this is so cool. It's so great making out with a girl. And I'm like, what? And Sara, like at the time, she said, when we were writing the book, she was in therapy being like, how on earth am I so tortured and sad about all of this? And Tegan's just like, fine. But I mean, that just seemed to be, I don't know if I really was fine, but it's what I was writing anyway.
We're finding, as we're sort of unearthing these memories, that we were left to fend for ourselves and deal with some pretty intense experiences at an age where, like, I don't think people give teenagers enough credit,
I don't think teenagers these days probably have the kind of freedom that we still had in the 90s. I mean, certainly for us, like we were taking transit. I mean, it took us almost 90 minutes to get to school every day because we lived deep in the Northeast and we were going to Crescent Heights. So there was just an enormous amount of like unstructured time, travel time, hangout time with friends that was not supervised by adults. And we definitely got into a lot of bad stuff. And certainly going back and writing the memoir conjured up a lot of that, returned me to that time. And that was probably one of the hardest things for my parents reading the memoir, is that for them, they kind of felt like it made them seem like they were absent, and they were, but not because they're bad people. They weren't like at an arcade playing games. I mean, they were working full time. My stepdad owned a company. My dad worked full time. My mom worked nights. So that was just the reality. And I definitely don't, like, I think there are new challenges for young people now. I mean, social media and cell phones being, the big ones. I think access, like we just didn't have that then. Like so I think we relied on our friends a lot. And that was like another big revelation writing the book, was just I wasn't out in the world alone. I was out out with Sara, out with my friends. There was so much safety because of like, we traveled in numbers, like big numbers, and we had a big crew of friends. And so it's not to say that we were not in danger or that we were not getting up or getting into no good. And we were bad, but there were a lot of us. Like it was rare we were alone.
When we first started doing our research for this and like deciding if we wanted to do season 2, we're like, let's figure out what's out there. And obviously high school was the biggest thing. I mean, like part of what's so great about having you here is that every time we tell people we're doing this, they're like, oh, well, Tegan and Sara. Well, do you know Tegan and Sara? And I'm like, okay, we'll get to that. Okay, we'll get there. But as part of our research, here's the tangent. I'll cut this part out, I promise. Was that we
podcast.
I went and watched Euphoria, which I hadn't seen.
I just rewatched it. It's mental.
And just the pilot and that scene of what's her name fucking hooking up with the guy on the phone and going alone to the hotel room. I couldn't finish watching it. I felt so traumatized.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the minute you said like power in numbers, I'm like, there you go. Like there's an individual not with her crew, like taking on a danger. Whereas like a lot of us were engaging in really dangerous behaviors, but usually in a pack. So that's my tangent. I just had to say, how compulsive.
No, I like it. It's made me think of something which may also be irrelevant and could be cut out. But when we adapted High School for TV, Sara and I, although we were executive producers and very involved, there were lots of things we didn't get a say in or got vetoed. And one of the things that I love about the show is that it really doesn't feel that representative of what we actually were like. It's very quiet and brooding and dark and emotional, and it took a long time for me to realize that what Laura and Clea, who wrote it, were capturing was more of the inner essence of what it feels like to be a teenager, and the external version of us would have been really hard to film and then try to capture the internal part of it, like the depression, the sadness, the homophobia, the fear.
For sure.
Like it would have been hard to do both.
Like extremes in a way, right?
Yeah. And so it's like, for me, it was so hard to connect at times to the show because I was like, we were not like this. We were the way we are today. We were loud and verbose and excitable and charming and wanted everyone to like us. And we got along with adults and we had so many friends, and the show feels really lonely. And I felt that too as a young person, but it was a weird thing that I was like, is that when people read the book, is that what they think? Because we were, when I watched the footage of us, we're just, like I said, we're so bombastic and verbose.
Oh my God.
We were not quiet and sad.
When you guys did the theater show and showed the old videos, that was one of my wildest experiences. So we knew each other in high school. Big reveal.
Yeah.
And when I watched that video, and it was you were just talking about something, and it was the speed at which you spoke. It was just hearing the cadence of the way you spoke and remembering how fast it was. And when I first started hanging out with you, and having to adapt to that,
Yeah.
Because the cadence of your speech has slowed down.
Yeah.
But that was the thing that flashed me back the most. That was like, whoa, yeah, that's right. It was jump on the train, man.
Our natural resting state was low-grade meth addict. It was, which is crazy since a lot of the drugs and things we were doing were not things that usually make you more animated. They slow you down. Perhaps we were self-medicating. I'm not sure, but I know we were.
Part of the fun for us of Late in 88 is to find out from other people what they remember about us, and we get to share kind of like that record keeping you did when you wrote your book, right? You and I met in grade 11, I think, right?
In 9th grade, we made friends with this French immersion class that joined our school, and when we graduated, half those girls came with us to Crescent Heights and half went to Aberhart. And it was hard. Our schools were not that close together. For us, we didn't, none of us had vehicles, and so I remember, it was tragic. It was our friends that went to Aberhart, it was they were going to school in Switzerland or something, it just felt so far away. And the schools were so different. At that time, Crescent Heights was such an inner city school. It was massive. We were being bussed in from deep Northeast. And when we went to Aberhart to visit, Aberhart seemed like our junior high. It seemed small and quaint. It seemed clean and cute. And our friends were introducing us to their teachers. And I'm I feel a year into high school, you could have come to our high school and you would not have met. I don't know. It was like apples and oranges. It was not comparable, the experience. So my early memories of going to Aberhart was that everyone seemed really clean and cute and nice and rich. That's like was our big takeaway. And we were about to like get really into drugs and get really whatever. And I remember those girls in particular coming to hang out with us a couple times, and like they seemed like terrified of us, like and the world we lived in. But yes, in grade 11, I remember we went to some Eberhard parties. And at that point, I remember us being introduced.
My memory of meeting you was at one of our friends' houses, and you had a maroon sweater on. That's like my big memory. And then you were like sitting with some friends, and I was like immediately intimidated by you. And I was just like, whoa. And then I think it was like a year later, we actually had a conversation.
Yeah, it wasn't until 12th grade that I really remember connecting. A lot of that was around Steve's death. Like we came to the funeral, and yeah, there was just like this mystery. You guys were kind of mythical to me, like your group of friends. Like there were a lot of comparisons that we would make. Like we thought your group of friends was like our group of friends, but now with context, we were nothing alike our group of friends.
You assumed we were all hooking up.
Yeah, I just assumed. I mean, you guys seemed alternative, so I was like, they go to raves, they do drugs, they're like hooking up with each other. Like I just assumed you guys were like our group of friends, and then that was made clear over the first couple years of high school that I was like, no, that is not the same. That's not what's happening. But that just made you guys more interesting to me. You know, as we got into 12th grade, and again, like the whole thing around Steve, I mean, that just added a whole other, you know, layer to like what you guys were experiencing. Like it just made you seem like older, more experienced, like you were living through something really big and super scary and upsetting. And then, you know, as we started to play music, you guys, like that, your whole crew just were so generous and invested. And like it's not that people like at our school, like our friends were also like that, but it was sort of like a hobby. But you guys were like, the sensation I got was you guys were like, oh, they're like legit, you know, like
Heck
you guys,
yeah.
It almost like felt a little bit like, especially the wider group, including you, it was like you guys took us seriously. And I remember Sarah and I being really swept up in that, because it was like that mythical, cleaner version of like this crew of friends, like to take us seriously. It felt really rewarding. And I remember like finishing high school with this really like intense feeling like, wow, these like serious kids like us. You know, they think we're cool.
I think we were serious. I feel like I was
Yeah, you guys
serious.
were very serious.
I think we were, especially because of Steve's death. It got really real and really serious. But it's funny as you say that, because, of course, I'm thinking about Bree's birthday party where my band played, and then you guys played. Yeah, I think that, I don't know if that was the first time I had heard you play, but
probably.
Yeah, I remember when you like were singing, and then you really went there emotionally. It felt like it anyways. Like you just you belted.
Yeah.
And I think in that kind of context, like where everybody in that time, at least I felt super self-conscious, that you were brave enough to have that vulnerability, it completely floored me. Like I was like, whoa. Yeah. And I felt like you were both so powerful. And so, yeah, I was invested. I was like, I want some of that. Sign me up. I'm into that. So I feel like from the get-go, I was really inspired by you and Sarah. I was already, you know, doing my own art and knowing that was my safe space. But I didn't have a lot of self-esteem in it.
That was such an integral part of our high school experience, was understanding the socioeconomic backgrounds of like our friends and the dividing lines of Calgary and how that affected things. Like we made friends with a couple girls at Eberhard who weren't allowed to come to our house because we lived in the Northeast. And those were things, like we talked about class like in high school. Like, you know, one of the documentaries that I made for Broadcasting and Communication was about stereotypes and how we were all being perceived based on the way we dressed or having a car or not, or what high school we went to. Like these were actual things we were thinking about in high school, which kind of blows my mind now, because like now that doesn't actually seem that far-fetched for young people because of their access to the internet. But the fact that we were obsessing over how we were being stereotyped at school and how other groups of people were being stereotyped, which was basically stereotype. That was like a stand-in for class and race. I think that was one of the things that happened between us and all of you at Aberhart, was that we did feel below you. Like we felt less than. Some of those misconceptions or some of those, markers started to disappear or blend in more, but they were still there. And so to be accepted by you all was really interesting. The flip side of that is that by then I'd also established that there was an enormous amount of pressure on kids that went to your school and who came from certain backgrounds, and that you weren't necessarily encouraged to be artists. You were encouraged to be academic, or you were encouraged to go to the sports school, which was obviously happening at Aberhart at that time. You might have wanted to be artists and you might have wanted to do something alternative, but your parents were not going to let you. That's what it felt like. Again, this was just like from our perspective, was like, you're going to go to university, you're going to get an education, and you're going to have a traditional path. I could feel the shock. Again, this was just like a feeling of like when we were like, yeah, we're not going to go to university and we're going to do music. And people were like, what? How are you going to get away with that? And I think it's what made me work so hard at first to really succeed, was that I wasn't just proving it to myself. I was like, well, now we have to prove it to like all these people who believed in us and their parents, because everybody else was on this other path. And we were lucky that we didn't have to go on that path and we could follow our dream. But then it was like, well, we cannot fail, because then we're really fucked.
My feeling of being in your house was there was a lot of creativity in your house. And I was like, that had been the first time I'd been in somebody's house that felt like a creative space. Whereas my home growing up was nothing like that. And like so rigid, first generation, all that shit.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's just interesting to hear you say that, because for me, going into your house, it felt wealthy. Like I was like, look at all this art. Look at all these ceramics. Look at all this color. Look at all this fashion. Look at all these things I was like starving for. And so I always perceived you guys as being wealthy. I actually did. I never thought of you as being on like a lower tier. And I hear that you had moved neighborhoods and all that, but it was more wealth perspective from access, what you had access to, which kind of connects to what you were talking about with feeling supported at home, because that's also something I did not feel.
And I really will admit that like all of you at Aberhart felt very creative to me, but felt like the kinds of people that wouldn't have been allowed to like pursue that. Entering your houses, it felt really, it was so aspirational in a way, because you guys lived in a nice area and you all had really nice houses, but it also did feel stifling. It did, But I was also entering as like a person wearing like size 36-inch waist men's jeans, with a colorful rainbow chain dragging along the ground and, piercings on drugs. So I was like, of course it felt aspirational, but it also felt terrifying. I was like, felt very exposed. But we were shocked that none of you were gay.
Wow. Well, that didn't really turn out true, did it?
No, but at the time we were like, this is crazy. They're all straight? How? Just even speaking statistically, it didn't really make a lot of sense, but we were like, okay, you know your truth.
Repressed. The word is repressed.
Yes, that's true.
Well, Bronwin was kind of the only gay person in the school.
I was the only gay in the village. But I didn't really fit in the village. Like I was that like, if we were doing like, a traditional movie, I was like that alternative rich kid who like, I saw the Stepford community for what it was, like the superficial sanitized version of it. And I like tried to break the glass from the inside in that sense. Like I recognized the privilege that I had. I was in that like, that house of, that sort of charmed life, right? Like we lived in Hawkwood and like, the fanciest of fancy areas in the 90s, yet I felt like I was in a gilded cage, right? Because like I'm in Hawkwood, in like the fanciest area of Hawkwood, experiencing like domestic violence, and like I couldn't wait to get out of there. And then I go to school where I'm like, not feeling particularly comfortable. I have my crew, which is good, but like all I wanted to do is just like escape from there. In Calgary, there was very much like a class system, neighborhood, and quadrant wise.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and that played out in the high school system because of where you would go to high school based on sort of where you lived in the city. because of the Northeast being more industrial, and, you know, the Northwest was sort of seen as the heavy residential, and like certain schools were seen as like lesser than.
But you know what's so funny is that probably the lowest income friend I had was Steve. Like, he had a single mom and lived in like a really small little house in like really in our neighborhood. So it's just funny to think about my relationship to that. And I think I was a little clueless. So this is all very interesting to me. Like, it wasn't on my radar, and obviously not something I ever worried about, being like a total middle class. And my mom didn't work. She didn't have to. So, you know, I clearly had blinders. But I think my experience of low income was actually through him, and it fueled our friendship in a lot of ways, because he was always alone after school. So he would always be there, or he would be at my house. It's interesting to think about, because I do think that is what teenagers are coming into as well, like gauging where they exist on the social spectrum and in the world. And like, there's no way you couldn't be aware of that in some ways, you know?
We did live in this bubble time. Like, I know Calgary was really hard, especially for queer people. And, you know, obviously things in Alberta, even now, like, make it tough to feel good about yourself when everything you see in the news and the media is like an attack on you. But the sort of blip of time we were in high school was really weird and unique, because rave culture was so huge, and, you know, openness and fluidity was really big in that scene. And, you know, as always, music is sort of this, whatever type genre of music you're into has a community, and the community that supported dance music and EDM and rave culture was really open-minded. And it was a really great nest for us to kind of muck about in, to figure out who we were, because it was really okay to be gay. You know, not come out as gay, but like to kind of act gay and to look gay and be into gay stuff. And, you know, like I always say that combined with like Hackers and When Night is Falling, all these really like kind of quintessential gay, like formative movies that had queer representation in it, all came out in the time we were in high school, Chasing Amy. And like now we look back and we go, oh, I don't like the representation, whatever. But the fact that we were even getting any representation was so huge. And that really impacted us, you know. It's why we felt so confident when we started our career to come out. Is that, I mean, it didn't feel like we had the option, but I think we also recognized, we were riding a wave of culture that was starting to say, it's okay, you know, like Kurt Cobain and Michael Stipe, like they had all come out when I was in, you know, 9th grade, as saying that bisexuality was cool, you know. And that's just like luck of the draw that we were kind of coming of age in that moment, and we had access to all of that. And I know lots of kids the exact same age as all of us who didn't, you know. And I think that's been some of my takeaway with talking with our friends from Abe, was that like you guys had less exposure to that stuff, and you had less support at home to those things. Like your mom wasn't renting you When Night is Falling, and then going and like doing her own thing, and then us all watching it and being like, I can remember like a friend turning and being like, is your mom trying to make you gay? Like, does she know you're gay?
I mean, you know how old school my parents are, Tegan.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
My mom was born in the frickin' war, like
different
in
time.
Europe. Like we always reveled, Tegan and I, at how like my mom could be your mom's mom, because your mom was almost, young.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, my mom had me at 40, and
That's
your
wild.
mom had you at what, 22? So
22.
Our parents were 20 years apart. And that was also such a trip for me going into your house, because your mom would swear, and she was cool, and she was like talking to you like a normal person, like, Tegan, what the fuck? Get over here. And
my mom was 6 years younger than I am right now when I was in 12th grade.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, whereas my mom was like, my parents were so traditional. So like, I didn't realize how homophobic my parents were until this was after high school, but you guys were playing at Rook's, which was the gay bar in Calgary. And I think I was still living at home. I said, oh, I'm going to go see Tegan and Sara at Rook's. And for me, it was like, whatever. And my mom flipped out. She's like, that's dangerous. You can't go there. There's lesbians. And I was like, what? Like, how could lesbians be more dangerous than regular straight guys in a bar? Like, show me where the danger is. But she was really genuinely afraid.
Yeah.
You know, we would have movie parties, and I remember watching But I'm a Cheerleader at one of those parties, and that was a major moment for me.
Yeah.
And I remember that movie was like it's like I started getting a feeling about this sense of context about something that felt sort of innate, but I didn't know how to talk about it.
It's just exposure, like some of those more traditional values in those households. Like, it's just harder. You guys didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't have the same level of exposure that
We had
our
old
parents
parents.
had. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I had old parents, but I was like highly like, I don't know. I started like getting into that kind of stuff young because I knew I was different and I didn't have the exposure. So I sought the exposure at every opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I also had a gay uncle, so I was like, oh, this is a thing that can be.
Yeah.
This is a thing that can be. Okay, I must discover all the things. So it's like I watched every possible gay thing ever in existence. Desert Hearts, When Night is Falling, like absolutely anything that was on Showcase and Bravo, A&E, like absolutely all of it. And
do you remember the Murmurs had the song "You Suck"?
Yeah.
And that came out when we were in 10th grade. Yeah. And I remember when that came out, and the cover is Leisha Haley, and like she's got this like pink, I think her hair's pink on the cover, but like it was her and her girlfriend's band, and it was just a throwaway one sentence in like a Spin magazine or something, but it was the first time I'd seen someone, like Alicia's a little bit older than us, but like it was the first time I'd seen someone our age-ish being not just gay, but being a musician. And I remember really like thinking like that was like seeing myself. Some of us are trailblazers and just know and do it, and others of us keep it a secret and have to hide it, and others repress it and suppress it, and it takes longer, and some act on it and some don't. And I think that that's been so much of our journey around trying to understand what coming out means. What does it actually mean? What part has to be public and what part is personal and private? And I think that literally looks different for every single person. And
100%. And I think that's important, like as part of our conversations, as part of this podcast, like there is no wrong way to discover yourself or come out or not come out, like, because it's an incredibly personal journey. Tegan, I did actually meet you and Sara ever so briefly, like just after high school. Mm-hmm. So I was friends with Ray Spoon, or still am kind of friends with Ray Spoon.
Amazing.
And so Ray, I used to work with Ray at the Brentwood Co-op gas bar.
Hilarious.
And after work one day, Ray was like, yo, I'm going to go, my friends are doing a little like gig at a local coffee shop. You want to come and hang out after work? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. They brought me in like, oh yeah, these are my friends, Tegan and Sara. You guys were just like wrapping up your shit. And like, we missed your little set or whatever. And we all just sat around and had coffee. And
so funny.
But that was it. I don't really remember much else, to be completely honest. But that was like the one and only time we ever met, which I thought was too funny. And we are going to be interviewing Ray for
good
for a later
It's funny.
episode.
Ray was the first like musician friend that we made post high school, and was the first queer person that we made friends with. Like, open. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here.
Of course, pleasure.
Patron saint of Calgary high school queerness.
Little dirtbag trash.
Who knew?
Patron saint, but
who knew?
Enjoyed it very much, and can't wait to listen.
Thanks for coming over and hanging out. Be sure to subscribe and get the next episode directly in your feed. Follow us on your favorite social platforms at late.in.88. We cannot wait to hear your angsty teenage stories. You can check out our website, latein88.com, for more resources on all the grungy topics we dig into this season. Late in 88 is created by Bronwin Parks and Elinor Svoboda. Edited by Elfire Media. Original music by Aaron Hutchinson. Mixed at Sound Lounge by T-Bone. Additional production by Women in Media Network. Artwork by Feisty Creative. We would like to acknowledge the generous support from Alberta Foundation for the Arts.